Here we go. Beautiful afternoon here. And today, my sales team collected over $45,000 in one single day. And in this video, I'm gonna break down the exact strategies and the exact lesson that I taught them the morning before they went into their sales calls in order to achieve a record day, not just in terms of cash collected and revenue generated, but also our top close rate day for the month. Okay, I'm currently reflecting on the afternoon with a beautiful sunset here in Playa del Carmen, and let's jump into it. I'll see you guys soon. Welcome back to another Sunday masterclass. As I mentioned in the introduction video, I'm going to break down a bit more of a practical lesson today in terms of what I taught my reps over the past probably 10 days, 2 weeks, to ensure that the close rate on average increased by about 8%. We also, obviously, like I mentioned, had a record day. Okay, $45,000 cash collected in a single period of 24 hours. Most importantly though, we surpassed the previous cash collected record month with 2 days remaining still. Okay, so there's a couple of other metrics I look at other than cash collected and revenue generated. Our cash collected per call has increased by about 10% since the start of the month. And another metric that I love and I do with a lot of the businesses and the teams that I manage is look at the metric of the refund rate. Obviously, having congruence with your offer is so important. Okay, making sure that you don't get a bad reputation through shit fulfillment, plain and simple, is so important. So what I've been able to do and install throughout the team is selling in the correct manner, changing their identity to ensure that the refund rate is well and truly below 2%, okay, which is important in terms of reputation, like I said, but also the financing options that you can then deploy into your company. Okay, so I want to dive into a bit more of a practical lesson, like I mentioned, that I installed into the reps, okay, specifically around the discovery, specifically around overcoming limiting beliefs. So let's jump in. I'm also going to share my screen, so this should be interesting, okay? So what I was able to install this week is, and what I always train my reps around, is the importance of eliminating limiting beliefs, okay, without sounding salesy on your calls. Okay, so realistically, on a closing call, you can go through the script, you can go through the framework, you can go through all of that, but if you don't change the identity of the person on the call, there is no way that they're going to invest, there's no way that they're going to buy, and most importantly, there's no way that they're actually going to get the result that they want to get in order to achieve their goals. Okay, so how do we change limiting beliefs? Well, this is exactly what I teach, and this is exactly what my reps do to ensure that. Okay, so first of all, the problem with how most reps handle beliefs. Okay, every prospect walks into a call with limiting beliefs. They don't announce them. Okay, they hide them in casual language or in their language, and that's how we have to pick them up, by listening to what's being said. So, an example, when a prospect says, I'm just kind of exploring, or it seems like it's a popular thing right now, they're operating inside of a frame that says, yeah, this is optional, it's not essential, I'm browsing, I'm not buying, I'll figure it out myself, investing feels risky, or something I'm unsure about, okay? Every one of those beliefs or every one of those frames that the prospect's coming into the call with is a deal killer. Absolute deal killer, okay? They won't surface as objections, they'll surface as, I need to think about, which is obviously an objection, but they surface as just bullshit, plain and simple at the end, okay? So, most reps handle this one of two ways. They ignore the limiting belief, okay? Or they keep moving through their framework. Realistically, that's because they don't have the ears, they don't have the knowledge to be able to actually pick up on these limiting beliefs, okay? So, or they dive in and lose their place on the call and the conversation falls apart. Something I was dealing with my rep at the moment is they go down a rabbit hole of, okay, fuck, I need to change that belief, and then they end up just making it a lot uglier. They cause a lot of sales resistance where the person's like, why are you asking me this question? Where is this going? And the sale is lost. Okay, so there's the two things. They don't know how to handle the limiting belief, but most commonly you don't actually pick up on the limiting belief. Okay, so maybe that's another lesson that we can dive into, is exactly how to listen for that belief. Okay, the belief change cycle solves both problems. Okay, so this is what I've created. Yes, this is made on Claude, okay? No, Claude didn't make this with no input from myself at all. It's just a clean layout. It gives you a repeatable process for changing beliefs mid-call without losing direction, okay? Without sounding salesy and without the prospect even realizing what has happened, okay? That's crazy. That's important. Okay, so this is the framework. I love getting tactical. I love to keep these lessons really short and brief. We can always dive a little bit deeper. If you want to work with me, if you want a little bit more information, if you want me to help scale your sales team, just follow me on Instagram, do whatever the fuck you have to do to reach out to me, okay? Cool. This is the full cycle. Every belief you need to change on a call follows this exact sequence. Now, there's a little bit of vagueness in here because obviously I want to provide you with extreme value. There's also probably some depths we have to dive down a bit personally or work together personally on to be able to ensure it hits and lands as best as possible, okay? So, first of all, you have a question, you ask a question, you get an answer from the prospect. Within that answer, you hear a limiting belief, okay? What does shine mean? Well, you can see here, I shine equals I change the belief, okay? So when I hear a limiting belief, it's my time to shine. So to say, okay, put it simple, I then change the belief, okay? Once I've changed that belief, the prospect then enters a new identity, okay? They see themselves as, wow, that belief's changed. Okay, I see myself completely different. I see the situation completely different. They're in a new identity. I then re-ask the same question to be able to get the correct answer or the answer that is gonna tie them down, okay? Inside that new identity, tie them down to that new identity, and then I'm able to move forward, okay? So here's exactly what it looks like. Again, question, their answer reveals how they see the situation. The language tells you everything, so important. This is your moment. You don't argue, you don't correct. You speak the direct truth in a way that makes the old belief impossible to hold. And that's the key. You put a frame on them that is so true because the truth always pierces through the ego. It always pierces through any limiting belief or any belief at all that they have to accept it. Okay, the truth lands, their perspective shifts. They're no longer the same person who answered the question 60 seconds ago. So now you're talking to a different version of them, which means you have to go back and ask the original question the way they gave the weak answer to you. The one they gave you the weak answer, you have to re-ask that question. You ask it again. They give you a new answer that then ties to that new identity. Okay, you move forward, you mark that belief as handled and move on. You also then have substance if they try and slip back into that old identity in objection handling or post-pitch. You're able to bring them back to the present or bring them back to that new identity through this tie-down method. Okay, so let's do an example. Okay, and this is a specific example for one of the companies that I'm working for at the moment. Okay, the prospect is 19. He wants to build a personal brand, but talks like it's a hobby. Okay, so his belief is, oh, personal brand's just a side hustle, it's just a hobby. Okay, he says things like, it's kind of a trend, I want to check out that route and see what I can do. He's been through a clothing brand, landscaping, insurance the past couple of years. He's tried his options, okay? Classic decision fatigue, no commitment to anything, okay? That's our understanding. That's the context of this situation, okay? The question, okay? What's the number one thing that you're looking to achieve through growing your personal brand? I lay that question out. What am I gonna get from that question? Well, I'm gonna get a range of different answers where I'm gonna see different frames. I'm gonna see the way he looks at things. I'm gonna see his beliefs around certain things as well. The answer with the limiting belief. I just want to see if I can do it. It seems like a popular thing. Everyone's kind of doing it, okay? He sees personal branding as a side project. They can also say, oh, you know, the number one thing I'm looking to achieve is just growing my side hustle so that I can replace my income. So he sees it as a side hustle, okay? This is a deal killer because if he sees it as a hobby, if he sees it as a side hustle, if he looks at social media or personal branding as something that it's nice to have, he's never going to invest $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 into it because why would you invest that sort of money into a side hustle? Well, it's very hard to justify. So we need to change that belief. We need to change that frame around him looking at it as a hobby. We just need to make sure he looks at it as a business investment or something serious, much more serious. So then he has the lens and he has the frame of, yeah, I do need to take this seriously. I do need to invest into myself. Okay, a simple belief change. This is very, very surface level, very, very basic, okay? My time to shine. So I hear that belief, I hear that kind of frame, and I speak the truth, okay? Personal branding, Mr. Prospect, isn't a trend. It's the only thing that's gonna withstand the takeover of AI. People don't buy from these big brands anymore, you know, like Coca-Cola, Amazon. Sure, you purchase little things, but you're not invested into them, okay? And as AI continues to take over, the only thing that's gonna withstand that is personal brands because that has human connection, okay? You relate to that person, you trust that person through your brand, which then allows you to purchase whatever product that brand is promoting. Okay, so The frame I lay there, okay, so that's the frame, okay, the only thing consumers are going to engage with when choosing a product is who runs the company, who's behind it. I'm sure you already do this, okay, you literally already subconsciously do this. It's not optional for someone who wants to buy a real business, okay? You then frame it back, so knowing that, so I set the frame, knowing that you now see personal brand is the only thing that's gonna withstand AI, do you think you can afford to look at your personal brand as a side hustle, as a hobby, or do you look at it as a real investment into the future in order to grow your business or in order to promote X product? So I give him a binary choice. Okay, I give him a choice of, hey, do you want to continue to look at it as a side hustle, knowing that it's the only thing that's going to withstand AI, knowing that it's the true way to be able to grow any business into the future, or do you want to invest and look at your personal brand as something much more serious, okay? What are you going to choose? Any person with a brain is obviously going to say, no, they choose the real investment every time. Okay, why is that? You tie them down a little bit. Okay, sure, you probe down. Why are you looking to do that? Because most people wouldn't. Most people would just continue to look at it as a side hustle, but why do you have a different lens, or why are you looking at it from now a different perspective where you're serious about taking it to the next level and, excuse me, and acting like this is a real business adventure? Why? Cool, I tie them down, okay? So now we're on the same page about how serious it is. Okay, so now I've removed that limiting belief of, oh, I'm just looking, it's a side hustle, you know, that frame, that context, okay, which we all get on calls, to it's quite serious. So now I re-ask the question. So what's the number one thing you're looking to achieve through your personal brand? Well, I want to build my business 10K a month and have my personal brand be the engine that drives it. And now that's a closable statement. Now you can obviously continue to probe, what does that look like, etc. But you've literally, and I know this is a basic example, but you've literally changed that limiting belief like that by addressing it, okay? Shining, when I say shine, you shine the truth on the situation about whatever you're selling is and about how important it is. You change their perspective, okay? And then you tie them down to make sure that they're in that new identity, okay? So that's how you obviously go into and change the side hustle belief, or that's how you change one belief, is just by shining the truth. Again, very basic stuff. Now, where people get lost is in the rabbit hole, okay? Changing beliefs means going deeper into a conversation, but going deeper without awareness is how reps lose calls entirely, okay? When you're asking why, and you don't know the answer that you're looking for, okay? Imagine going into a call and you're not even sure about the answers that you're looking for. That's when it can really cause trouble, okay? So you must know where you dove in. Okay, so I always take notes and I tell my reps, again, this is the lesson that I taught my reps in a much more depth, but this is the surface level of it, okay? You always have to take notes of, okay, what belief did I dive into? Okay, I dove into the side hustle belief. So once I've changed it, I can pull out and I can put a tick next to that belief and continue on to the next one, okay? Before you go down a rabbit hole, know exactly what question or topic you're on. Write it down. Side hustle equals changed. Okay, when you come back up, you already know what's next because you never lost your place. Think of it like diving underwater, you mark the spot on the surface before you went down. Perfect example, okay? Rule number 2 on diving down the rabbit hole of changing beliefs. One belief at a time. Obviously similar to know where you dive into, okay? A lot of reps, what I see is they try and just nail all these different beliefs at random times, okay? They'll go, oh, and now I've got to go down this rabbit hole and this rabbit hole, etc., okay? One belief at a time. I initially changed the belief of it's personal branding as a side hustle. I then come back to the surface, I identify other limiting beliefs, maybe limiting beliefs around money, maybe limiting beliefs around like time, okay? You know, all of that type of crap, you know those examples, okay? Write it down, finish the one you're on, put a line through it when it's changed, then come back up to the surface and dive down another rabbit hole. If you jump to a new belief before finishing the current one, before tying the current one off, neither gets resolved and the calls spiral. Now, how many of you listening to this, or how many of your reps that you train have calls that are 60 minutes, 70 minutes, 80 minutes, an hour and a half? That's because they're letting the call spiral and they haven't tied up loose ends and moved on, okay? So important. And then arguably the most important one is only dive down into the limiting beliefs that are actually going to change the way that they think about making a decision on the call. You don't need to fucking listen to every single word that the prospect's saying and dive down that rabbit hole and uncover 1,000 different things. You need to identify the biggest beliefs, okay, the biggest frames, and you need to change those ones, okay? Not every limiting belief needs a full rabbit hole. Save this process for the ones where you hear and think there's no way that they're going to buy that with that thought or that frame or that perspective or that belief in their mind. They're the ones that you need to dive down. Okay, now let's get a little bit practical because I love getting practical with these sessions. Okay, you need to have pen and paper on all your calls. If you don't have pen and paper on your calls taking little notes, you're just missing out on information. You're just losing, like plain and simple, okay? Obviously, I'm extremely present, but as I sit here, I'm going, interesting. Keep talking to me process. I don't have any distractions. A pen and a paper is not a fucking distraction, okay? It's a tool that you can use in order to enhance your awareness, in order to enhance your presence, okay? Because you pick up on things as the conversation keeps going that you can come back to, okay? As a prospect talks, write down every limiting belief that you hear. Don't react to all of them, just capture them. When you dive into one, know which one you're going to dive down because it's written in front of you, okay? When you change it, put a line through it, a tick next to it, and move on to the next one. Look at your list, the next one should already be waiting for you because as I'm diving down one limiting belief, I can hear another one kind of hop up or come up. So I'm like, okay, interesting, yeah, no, cool, change that one. Now I go, okay, there's a new one there, and then I come back to service and I dive down that new one as well, okay? Repeat until every major belief is handled. You never get lost because the list tells you exactly where you are and exactly what's next. The sun doesn't blind you when you come back up from the rabbit hole. Your notepad is the map. How powerful is that? Okay, cool. Now, again, I know this is a bit of a surface level lesson. It's always the basics that we need to be reminded of. You don't need new knowledge, you just need to be reminded of the knowledge that you already have. Okay, so again, if you're not changing limiting beliefs on your call, if you're not addressing the identity of the prospect that you're talking to, what are you doing? Okay, so why this works. When a prospect says yes to the offer, they're not buying the program, they're stepping into a new identity that now sees themselves as that person that would invest or as that person that's going to achieve X goal from the program. If you haven't changed their beliefs during the call, the identity they're being asked to step into doesn't match who they think that they are. Okay, so when I ask you to buy something, I'm asking you to change, I'm asking you to make a shift. Okay, I'm asking you to make a change. If your identity doesn't match that person, you're not going to fucking match what I'm asking you to do. Okay, it's so simple. Okay, that mismatch is where every soft objection comes from. Okay, the price is never the problem, the identity gap is. How powerful is that? Okay, so it's never a price problem. Money is abundant. You can install that belief. Okay, when someone says, oh, I don't have the money, I've never had the money, that's a limiting belief. Obviously, that's one of the most typical limiting beliefs in the high ticket sales space. It's the frame that they're looking at it from. So you need to be able to change that in order to allow them to get resourceful. Okay, so money is never the problem. It's the beliefs and it's the identity that they have. So again, if you're not doing this on your sales calls, if you're not training your reps to change the identity, to identify limiting beliefs, to pre-handle objections, your discovery is shit. Plain and simple, okay? The belief change cycle closes the gap before you ever pitch, okay? By the time you get to the investment, they've already become the person that says yes. It's ingrained into them because you've changed the belief that they were keeping them stuck in their old identity. The close becomes the natural conclusion of the conversation, not the battle. This is where I've had prospects go, after going through discovery, I haven't even had to pitch them. I haven't had to go on through the deliverables at all. They're just like, yeah, I'm ready. Like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go. And it's like, it's the power of changing someone's identity, okay? It's the power of shining the truth on them, onto them or in front of them so that then they can come to the conclusion of they know they need to change, okay? So, quick reference, we can go through this again. Most importantly here is speak the truth, reframe how they see it. One thing to remember, never let a limiting belief survive your call. That's it. That's all you need to do. Just show them the truth, they change themselves. Okay, now there's multiple ways, okay, that going about changing the truth or going about how to shine the truth on them, there's multiple ways to go about that. It's offer specific, okay, it's prospect specific. How do you find that? How do you become aware of what truth to shine on them? Well, this is where it goes back to presence. Okay, your level of consciousness is higher than the prospect's level of consciousness. Your level of awareness is much higher as well. Okay, so it's all about the mental state, right? But in this video particularly, I wanted to give you the practical way that I teach my reps to go about discovery. Obviously there's a framework within this, but as soon as they hear a limiting belief, this is exactly what they dive into to ensure they change the identity, which leads to a lay down sale, okay? So I hope that was beneficial. I know this is a little bit of a longer session, a little bit more of a practical one, but this is the exact theory, the exact lesson that I install into my teams to be able to have record days, record weeks, record months. More importantly, increase the cash per call, okay, or increase the cash per booked call, reduce the refund rate and increase the close rate, okay? So 3 or 4 pretty important metrics there. If you want to learn more, if you want me to dive a little bit deeper, more than happy to. This has been a fun Sunday practical lesson. I look forward to the next one.